Hi class, welcome back. Welcome to Bangtan Film School. I'm Ms. Wright, and today for our lesson, we're going to take a look at the behind the scenes video for People Part 2 by Agust with IU. All right, so this episode is going to get a little more technical, but don't worry, you can totally handle it. All right, let's see, behind the scenes. D-Day. So they filmed most of the music video on location. This lady got like one of the best jobs in the world, getting to brush Yoongi's face all day. Yeah, so they're on location, meaning that they're at an actual physical location that they rented out somebody's house. And then there's also part of the music video that's in a studio on a set, and we'll see that as well. And the big difference is it's much harder to control an environment when you're doing it on location because you can't like knock down a wall to put up the lights that you want to have or things like that. You have to just work around the environment that you already have, which can be a little tricky, but you don't want to build a set for every single thing. It's just not necessary. And also you can't get that beautiful view of the lake that they have. You're not going to get that on a set, and you're probably not going to have a pool either. So you gain some, lose some. Let's see.
옛날 처음에 기타 연습 할 때 네, 몇 개 해볼게요. 그 디렉션 주시면 자, 카메라
All right, here is a monitor for the camera, and we're going to see these quite a lot. And the good thing is they give us a lot of clues to how they filmed this, but we'll talk about that when we see the next one.
사람 파트 2라는 곡인데 약간의 좀 메이킹이나 다큐 같은 느낌도 좀 전반적으로 좀
Okay, check this out. So over here, there's a woman in a gray jacket holding a board. This is called a reflector. It's a white bounce board. You're going to use these to reflect light. So when you're doing your lighting, you can do it multiple ways. You can have lights set up around you. And usually there's one strongest light, that's your key light, that's going to mainly light your subject. And then you need softer lights to diffuse it, to get rid of harsh shadows, depending on the mood that you're trying to get. So one thing you can do is have a bounce board, especially when you have natural light, like they do here from the sunlight, and you get that white board and you put it down and it will reflect the light onto the subject, create a very soft light that looks really nice. So that's what that is.
릴렉스한 그런 분위기 가능할 것 같아요. 집에서 있는
All right, now this is where we can get a little bit technical. Over here we see ISO on the corner of this monitor, ISO of 640. So the ISO is how sensitive you want the camera to be to the light. They're going to keep it pretty much in the middle for this music video, somewhere in the 600 to 800 for pretty much most of it. There's two other ways you can adjust your exposure with your camera. That's your shutter speed, how quickly the lens opens and closes to let the light in, and the aperture, how far it opens, how wide it opens and closes. We won't get into that too much today. Okay, so another thing we can see on the monitor is we have 5000K up here in the corner. That's referring to the color temperature. And color temperature is measured in Kelvin. Color temperature means the color of the light. So I'm going to show you another chart. If you look at this one, you'll see that when we have like 3000K, that we're down in very, very warm lighting, oranges and reds, and that if you're going to be doing something like candlelight or fire, then you're going to be using those kind of colors. When you get up to 5000K, like we're using in this video, you're imitating daylight. So you can see as we get up to 7000, full on daylight, like a blue sky. Okay, back to our video. With our puppy friends. Okay, take a look here. So we're in Yoongi's bedroom for the video shoot, and we're looking outside of the window. Now, really, this window faces the water that we see later, and it's so beautiful. But here you can see they've blocked it off. They have a big, dark, like sheet covering it That's really to block the sunlight because they want to light it very blue and very low, and so they can't have all that sunlight coming in. Here you can see a stand that has a light on it, pointing into the room. And over here on this white, it looks like they might have put some boards up there, either to block light or bounce light, most likely. So they got that set up. All right.
진짜 진짜 악필 중에 악필.
Too far away you're gone. I know I have to know.
저건 너무 자기적인가? 그냥
They're showing him the monitor so you can see how he
들어보면서
looks on playback. All right, so we can see a little bit more here. So this was filmed in 1080p, which is the pixel resolution. So pixel resolution referring to how many pixels there are when you're recording. And the more you have, then the more detailed it's going to be, the more colors you can have. The fewer pixels, well, it's going to look like Minecraft. So we don't want that. ProRes LT is the video compression format. That is a compression format by Apple, and you have to compress the video to make the file sizes smaller because these file sizes are humongous when you're filming at this high level. So you really have to compress them if you want any computer to be able to run them or you want to have enough storage for them. Here at the bottom, we have the times code stamp. 13495605. So each of those is referring to the minutes, the hours, the seconds, and probably the frames usually. But a lot of times we leave off the frames because it goes by so fast, like it's kind of pointless. But anyway, so this indicates they, on this particular device, have 13 hours, 49 minutes, and 56 seconds of footage. And probably going to end up with a lot more before they're done.
당신은 무엇 때문에 슬픈 걸까? 사실은 두려움이 큰 거잖아. 함께 미래 그리던 우리는
Got it. Okay, up here in the top left corner, that's kind of blurry right now, it says 120 FPS. So FPS is frames per second. When we're filming, every single frame is one photo. And when all the photos are played back in sequence, it gives the illusion of movement. So frames per second, how many photos were taken for 1 second of film. When you're using real film, you're going to do about 24 frames per second. And then when you're doing digital, the standard is like almost 30 frames per second. But a lot of times on music videos like this, they're going to film at a higher frame rate. So they were filming at 120 frames per second, which is very high. That's going to be 120 pictures for every second of film. It's a lot of pictures of our Yoongi. If you're filming just for yourself, you really don't need to film at that high of a frame rate. 30 to 60 is going to be plenty. The next thing we have, the ISO is 1000. So that is more sensitive for bright light, which makes sense because right here they're outside. So the sunlight is brighter, so they would adjust the ISO. And 5000K for our color temperature. They just want it to look like daylight, is why they're doing that.
쌓은 모든 성들을 부셔버린 것은 우린 걸 승패가 없는 게임이라지만 난 언제나 게임 루저 모든 걸 주겠다던 우린 모든 것을 부셔 그리고 떠나지 사랑이던 사람이든 모두가 이기적이기 때문에
아 따뜻하다. 목욕하는 느낌이야 따뜻해.
I want to get a warm foot bath. That sounds nice. There's our purple flowers for Army. Okay, we don't need to do this every single time, but if you look here in the top, you can see we're still at 120 frames per second. And down here at the bottom, you can see it says R3DLQ. So that is the data rate that they are recording at. And it looks like they're using the red camera. The red camera, not the color red, it's a brand. They're very, very popular for filming music videos and films and things like that.
편안함을 느끼는 그런 시입니다. 뭔가 이렇게 힘준 뮤직비디오가 아니라가지고 장면별로 좀 많이 들어갈 것 같아요. 그래가지고 최대한 편안한 마음까지 모르겠습니다.
Ooh. So right here, on the bottom right, you can see some track. And so that would be where you put the dolly on, and you can do that for a push shot, like if you want to push the camera closer to zoom in or to pull back, either way, you put the dolly on that kind of a track, and on the dolly is the tripod and the camera. It allows you to have that smooth camera movement. I got a glimpse of the camera here, but we'll get a better look later. All right, we can see some equipment. Bam, let's talk about it. Okay, so that black thing right there, that's the opposite of a bounce board. Uh, just call those a flag usually. So this is a black flag, and you can see on the top it has some little sticks coming off of it. That's so we can attach it to like a tripod or a C-stand. The C-stand you can see just to the left, it's that really tall metal thing behind the light. The C-stands are one of the most wholly useful items on a film set, and you will literally see them on every single film set, no matter where you go. They're gonna have C-stands. C-stands are used for holding equipment, so that black flag probably gonna go on that C-stand. You can even put lights on C-stands. You could just put a sheet on it. You could put a bounce board. Just it doesn't matter. Whatever the needs are, the C-stand can do it. The C-stand has clamps on it, so you can attach anything you want to it. It also usually has an arm that comes out that you can attach things to, and they're just super useful. They're going to be used by grips on set, and either the lighting or grip department will use them, and they're awesome. So, and then the board, the flag that we have there, that's going to be to block light. So yeah, the opposite of our bounce board. If there's too much light, we want to block it out. You hang one of those up, attach it to a C-stand somewhere up in the sky here, and block your light. Then we have the light. This is an ARRI brand light. ARRI lights are very popular. And they come in a couple of different kinds. So I'm not exactly sure which one this is, but most of the lights are either going to be LED or they're going to be tungsten. LED lights, which are like the ones I'm using here, they're much less expensive. They're more modern. They usually can change to any color in the rainbow, even purple. You can make the colors of the light cool, you can make it warm. The big benefits are they're inexpensive, they don't use a lot of energy, they don't produce a lot of heat, they don't ever get hot. And this is a major benefit because tungsten lights are much more expensive. They get very, very hot, very hot. You will burn yourself. You have to have gloves and training to be able to handle the tungsten style lights. They also take up a lot of energy, and they are not energy efficient, which is you notice because they lose heat. So if you're losing heat, you're losing energy, so you're not energy efficient. But they do create a very beautiful light, and they can last a long time, and they're the standard that's been used for most of the time in the film industry until now, where we have LED lights, and some people are using the LED lights more and more in film these days. And if you're filming and you want some inexpensive lights that can do a really good job, I highly recommend the LEDs. They're really going to be the way to go, especially for beginners starting out. Toesies! We want to talk about this. What do we got? Now we're doing 60 frames per second. So we've gone down lower. 60 is still a fairly high frame rate, though. Like, that's still higher than average. So it's not 120, but it's still pretty high. ISO of 800 because now we're indoors, and we're still wanting the light to be at 5000K because we're imitating daylight coming in through the windows. Is there anything to talk about here? This is back on the red camera. We see the R3D HQ. You can see the time code here. This one has 1 hour, 6 minutes and 44 seconds, and 19 frames of filming on it so far.
그게 슬픈 거야. So far away you're gone, getting far away, too far away you're gone. I know I have to know, yeah.
Ah, this lady got the best job ever. So if you look down here at the bottom, you're going to see that it says 17, 8K 17:9. So what that is referring to is the frame size that they're filming in. 17:9 being just a little bigger than the standard, which is 16:9. 16:9 is most likely what your TV is and your computer monitor is. So this is just slightly wider than that. And with 8K, you're going to have pixel depth of like 8192 by 4320. That's going to be, again, quite large, quite large. And they're just doing that to get the best, highest quality that they can for the music video. That is the sweetest puppy.
한 3년 전에 이미 다 작업을 다 해놨던 곡인데 이제야 발매가 되는 겁니다. 원래는 그냥 수록곡 중에 하나였는데 성공개로 공개되는 것만큼
We will send it lots of love. Do not worry about that, Minji. Oh, this is what we've been waiting for. Let's take a look at our camera. It's hard to catch it in the frame. So this here, you can see the camera. This is so a gimbal is like a handheld device that lets you hold the camera and keep it from like being too jerky when you're filming with it. And they can just have like a handle with the camera on top, or they can be fancier like this. This one is a ring, they call it. It's a camera stabilizer. So if you look in the center, the camera is right there in the middle, suspended. So when they're moving around, they can keep the camera stable and not have it be shaky and jerky. And they use these all the time on BTS videos. I see them on almost every single behind the scenes. They're using this. And most likely this is how they get the majority of those nice camera movements that are very slow, the slow movements left and right and pushing in and out that we talked about previously.
를 부셔버린 것은 우린 걸 승패가 없는 게임이라지만 난 언제나 게임 루저 모든 걸 주겠다던 우린 모든 것을 push 그리고 떠나지 사랑이던 사람이든 모두가 이기적이기 때문이야.
Now we are in the studio. So this is a set that they built to kind of look like his studio. It's reminiscent of his studio over at Big Hit. And he's just checking out all of the recording and audio equipment. I'm sure he knows quite a lot about all of that. Love this sweater.
사실은 두려움이 큰 거잖아. 함께 미래 그리던 우리는 없고 쌓은 모든 성들을 부셔버린 것은 우린 걸 승패가 없는 게임이라지만 난 언제나 게임 루저 모든 걸 주겠다던 우린 모든 것을 push 그리고 떠나지 사랑이던 사람이든 모두가 이기적이기 때문이야.
Here he goes. You see him off in the right corner, the camera guy, following him around, still using that ring stabilizer. He's sitting in a director's chair here.
오늘 하루 종일 이 사람 파트 2 뮤직비디오 찍었는데 사실 이런 카비온 뮤직비디오는 거진 처음이라 사실 좀 어떻게 찍어야 되는지에 대해서 좀 고민이 많았었는데 전체적인 곡의 분위기랑 메이킹을 좀 보여주는
The music video is focused on the song's ambiance.
잘한 것 같습니다. 사람 파트 2 많이 들어주세요.
And that's what we talked about in our previous video, is how to create that ambiance, the tone, the feeling that you want to get across. Okay, so this has been our special edition of People Part 2 behind the scenes video for Bangtan Film School. I'm Ms. Wright, and thank you for coming. Class is dismissed. See you next week.